What's up, diggity dogs? I just made a mess in the other room. High five.
You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another Top 10 video, and one that I actually did 8 years ago, but this is a new edition because my opinions have pretty radically changed. There have been more movies that have come out since then, and my opinions have also kind of shifted from rewatching some stuff. So without further ado, as the title says, let's just go ahead and jump into my new version of my Top 10 Dragon Ball movies. Now, as with the previous version, my criteria is the same, where I allow the TV specials to be counted as movies, because they were released in the US as movies, quote-unquote, but also they're the same length as the movies. They were all around 45 to 50 minutes. Like, it's pretty crazy that the theatrical movies were so short. Now, Dragon Ball Super changed that up and actually has longer movies, and, you know, there was also Path to Power that was longer. But anyway, enough preamble, let's just jump in. So, at my new number 10, we have Dragon Ball Mystical Adventure. Now, this was, in fact, an honorable mention in the first video, and frankly, it deserved to be on the list more than some of the others that didn't make this list this time around. See, back before, I used to have this weird sort of aversion to Dragon Ball movies, the original Dragon Ball movies, and the simple fact for that was because there was no way to try and, like, put them in the timeline. Like, you can't really do that with a lot of the movies. They don't really fit in the timeline. But not only did they just not fit chronologically, but a lot of the Dragon Ball movies were literally just re-adaptations of previous arcs with a few minor tweaks here and there. Like, this one, for instance, is an adaptation of the Tien Saga with a little bit of the Red Ribbon Saga mixed into it. And I think back then I used to have a problem with that, because it's like, well, if I wanted to watch those sagas, I'd just watch the anime. Nevertheless, I have always enjoyed Mystical Adventure. It's a really fun alternate universe, and, you know, the Tien arc is a good arc, and the parts of the Red Ribbon Army saga that it adapts is the Mercenary Tau stuff, so it's a really cool adaptation of those things. As time's gone on, I've loosened up more on the Dragon Ball movies, because again, Dragon Ball is my favorite Dragon Ball series. I like it more than Z, and I like it more than GT. I also like GT more than Z, but again, that's a whole other video that I've already done. Point is, Dragon Ball was my favorite, but interestingly, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Dragon Ball movies. I have loosened up on them quite a bit. Mystical Adventure absolutely deserves to be on this list. It's a great movie. I will say I'm still not the biggest fan of the first two Dragon Ball movies, being Curse of the Blood Rubies and Sleeping Princess and Devil's Castle. Those two kind of bore me still. Like, I don't hate them, but they're still definitely lesser. But Mystical Adventure deserves to be on here because it's actually a really good movie. At number 9, we have Battle of Gods. This was on the first list as well. Battle of Gods was the introduction to what would later become Dragon Ball Super. Basically, Toriyama wasn't happy with Dragon Ball Evolution, and over time decided to get back into it because of that and do another Dragon Ball movie. So he did Battle of Gods. Battle of Gods was still technically labeled as Dragon Ball Z, but I consider it a Dragon Ball Super movie because it was the start to Dragon Ball Super. And as you may know, I'm not a fan of Dragon Ball Super, the anime or the manga, but I do actually really like most of the Dragon Ball Super movies. The main reason Battle of Gods made both these lists is because of Beerus. Beerus is such a good character. Out of all the stuff that was introduced in the Dragon Ball Super age of Dragon Ball, Beerus was one of the better ones. He's easily the best new character. And Whis is a fine sidekick too. Super Saiyan God as a form is disappointing. Not my favorite form. But at the same time, it's not always about that. As I said in the previous video of this type, I do like that Goku doesn't actually beat Beerus. It's a subversion of the typical DBZ movie trope. I also really like the whole My Bulma scene when Vegeta attacks Beerus. I really love that scene. As you know, other than Bardock, Vegeta is my favorite character. So, that said, I loved that scene because it gives kind of a similar vibe, although not as epic, as Vegeta's final explosion, or when he loses his shit and attacks Cell when Cell kills future Trunks. I really like the moments where Vegeta shows that he cares about his family. I'm a big fan of that. Alright, on to number 8, we have Fusion Reborn. Now, this one was on the previous list as well, but I think it got knocked down a few pegs because there's some other movies I liked more. But Fusion Reborn is a cool fight. That's the main reason you watch it, right? Is it introduces Gogeta, which, as I said in the previous one, I'm a little disappointed that Gogeta has the same outfit as Gotenks, and the fact that that's stayed the case in every subsequent appearance. Because I've always been more of a Vegito fan, because Vegito has his own outfit and is distinct. That said, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is my favorite fusion overall because of the red hair and all that. That Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is cool. But Janemba just has a really cool design. The part of hell that they fight in is awesome and is really cool in the video games as a map to fight on. Fusion Reborn's just a lot of fun. The fusion stuff's cool. Having PyCon in it was really cool. It's overall just a really cool movie. Alright, at number 7 we have Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan. Now you might remember this was actually much higher in my previous list, and it has been knocked down a few pegs. Now I will say, interestingly, a lot of people, when they think of Broly, they just think of him as a stereotype that just yells Kakarot all the time. And that's really more so a problem with the second movie. That's not really a thing with the first movie as much. Like, yeah, he yells Kakarot a couple of times in the first movie, but he's much more of a character in the first movie than he is in the second. Not as good of a character as he is in Super, but we'll get to that later, hint, hint. But nevertheless, Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan has a lot of staying power, and I think the first Broly movie and the second Broly movie get mixed together a lot in people's heads, so they don't remember that Broly actually used to be a really cool character in the first movie. Not to mention the dub has fucking Tens by Pantera in it. Like, his theme song is literally a fucking Pantera song. How cool is that? Also, Broly's just a fucking huge buff Saiyan. It's cool to get more stuff with Saiyans, even though, you know, for a race that was wiped out, there seems to be a whole hell of a lot of them in the expanded media. But this was the first Broly movie, and it's iconic, so it obviously deserves a spot on this list. Didn't crack top 5, but it is top 7, and as I said last time, 7 is a very important number with Dragon Ball. Alright, and speaking of Broly, at number 6 we have Dragon Ball Super Broly. This is, by far, hands down, the best version of Broly that they have done. Dragon Ball Super Broly was Toriyama's take on Broly to actually bring him into the series canon, although Toriyama didn't really care as much about canon, and canon is a funny thing to talk about with Dragon Ball. But Dragon Ball Super Broly is like the definitive Broly. He's much more of a well-fleshed-out character. He's got multi-layers to him. He's got a soft side. He's got the anger still. Also kind of channels Super Saiyan 4 when he uses his, like, you know, kind of beast rage, whatever the fuck they called it. Like, he literally gets the yellow eyes of Super Saiyan 4, which, you know, I think is pretty cool that they kind of bring it in, because he's channeling the Ozaru form, which Super Saiyan 4 also did. I will also say this movie benefits from the fact that Frieza is also in it. I do think that the fact that they kept bringing back Frieza was kind of obnoxious, and I wasn't the biggest fan that he was such a focus of certain parts of Super. But I think having Frieza there in this Broly movie actually benefited it quite a bit. I actually really liked Frieza in this movie. And don't get me wrong, Frieza's an iconic villain. I just think that, you know, he's overplayed. But I mean, that's not really a hot take. I think everyone can kind of agree on that to some extent. But again, he's great in this, you know. Broly, look, something horrible's happened. You know, Frieza's fucking great in this. They also had stuff with Bardock in this, which I have very mixed feelings on, because as you know, Bardock is my favorite character. I have issues with this depiction of him, because he still has, like, the softer Bardock that Toriyama made in Minus to an extent, and he still sends off Goku to save him from the planet being destroyed, which again was not Goku's original origin. Originally, Goku was sent off to destroy Earth and conquer it. But again, this is better than Dragon Ball Minus, because at least in this version, Bardock still confronts Frieza. Again, I would have rather just not had it in there, because Bardock is ruined in everything except for the first Bardock movie. But nevertheless, he did have a better appearance in this than he did in fucking Minus, at least. Although he had no fucking red headband. I mean, come on. At least give him the fucking headband. Now, at number 5, we have Dragon Ball Super Superhero. That's right, 2 Dragon Ball Super movies this high up, and this one cracking top 5. This was by far my favorite Dragon Ball Super movie. Dragon Ball Super Superhero, many things I loved about this movie. The tone is very similar to OG Dragon Ball. It helps that it brings back the Red Ribbon Army as a concept and as like an antagonistic force. Dr. Hebdo's a complex antagonist that isn't evil, he's just misled. This movie also has the confirmation that 16 was based on Jiro's son put into it. Like, Toriyama said that in an interview before, but this was the movie that actually put it into something. We also got Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, which are pretty good android characters as well. Also, a lot of Piccolo focus in this movie. Piccolo gets a new form, that's pretty great. Now then we got Cell Max, and don't get me wrong, Cell Max is massively disappointing, and he's probably the least interesting part of this movie. But what is cool is we do get Gohan fighting Cell Max and then attaining a new form where he gets white hair, so Gohan Blanco becomes canon, So there you go. But I really like that this movie, you know, gives the vibes of OG Dragon Ball and the Android Saga, combining my two favorite things, OG Dragon Ball and the Androids arc. Again, I would have liked more done with Cell Max. I was a little let down by that, but everything else in this movie was fucking great. Alright, at number 4, we have Dragon Ball, The Path to Power. Now, this was the 4th Dragon Ball movie, like, not the 4th overall movie in the franchise, but the 4th movie under just Dragon Ball, not Z, GT, or Super, right? It was just Dragon Ball. However, it was made in the GT art style, and after GT was a thing already. Goku has his GT outfit. Now, interestingly, in the past, I would have never even considered to put this movie on the list, because I, again, had that weird gripe where I didn't like movies that just adapted stuff that was already done in the anime. But I gotta say, The Path to Power does it so well. I used to also have kind of a thing against the fact that Krillin just doesn't exist in the timeline of this movie. But this movie does a great job combining the Pilaf and Red Ribbon sagas into a really fun movie with an epic character death with Android 8 towards the end of the movie. They also have really good animation, recreations of several iconic scenes. It's a really good way to get a condensed version of those two arcs. Just keep in mind the fact that for whatever reason they decided Krillin doesn't exist in this movie. It's really grown on me. I fucking love this movie. Watching it again with Corbin, with the Discord server, really made me appreciate it a hell of a lot more. And so I think it absolutely deserves the number 4 spot on this list. Alright, at number 3, we have the same number 3 spot we had in the previous version, and that's Dragon Ball GT: A Hero's Legacy. This movie takes place 100 years after the battle with Omega Shenron. And it follows Goku's descendant, Goku Jr. Again, whether he's the great-great-grandson or great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson, depends on which translation we're going on. Point is, it's in the future and Pan's like his grandmother or his great-grandmother, depending on translation. And part of what I love about this movie is just a quest for the Dragon Balls, because Pan is sick, and Goku Jr. wants to try and save her. So he's going to try and find a Dragon Ball, because he doesn't know you need all 7. It's a whole thing. But it takes you back to the feeling of OG Dragon Ball. It just feels like watching that first arc again. And I absolutely love that. If you don't know, the beginning of Dragon Ball is one of my favorite parts of the series. I fucking love the original Pilaf saga. Because just the quest for the Dragon Balls, the adventure and the fantasy, is what makes Dragon Ball so great. And so the fact that A Hero's Legacy goes back to that, it channels that, and it follows that, and feels like you're watching OG Dragon Ball again for the first time, is why it's on this list. I also consider this the ending to Dragon Ball, even though it didn't actually, air after the final episode of GT. It actually aired between a couple episodes, and technically the ending of GT actually takes place slightly after this, because you see the battle between Goku Jr. and Vegeta Jr., whereas this leads into that. But despite that, I still consider this like the true ending because of one particular scene, and that's where Goku gives the 4-star Dragon Ball to Goku Jr., passing it down to him and saying, he's like, this is my grandpa's ball, and he hands it down to him. The symbolism of him passing down the 4-star Dragon Ball before disappearing again, after Goku had been gone for 100 years. It is such a good ending. Such a good bookend to the series. It's a fucking shame that it doesn't get the appreciation it deserves. The Hero's Legacy is fucking fantastic. Alright, at number 2. Surprise, surprise, it's the same number 2 spot as last time, and that's The History of Trunks. What can I say about History of Trunks that I haven't said already? I fucking love The History of Trunks. Such a sad and dark movie. And it has easily the saddest death in the entire Dragon Ball franchise. And you pair that death with the best Super Saiyan awakening ever depicted in the series as well. The History of Trunks is a doomed timeline. It's a timeline with no Dragon Balls. Death has weight. There's no hope. And yet Trunks must persevere to try and save the future. And his bond with future Gohan is so good. You see future Gohan trying so hard to save the world himself. But this Gohan, he went through all the stuff that Gohan went through the first 3 seasons of Dragon Ball Z. He went through all of that, right? He went through all the way to Frieza. But then everybody else died, and he was left as the only warrior left. What the hell was he supposed to do? And so we get this really tragic Gohan that's lived in this doomed timeline for so long. And he's like the only hope, him and Trunks. And the way that this whole movie plays out, the ending is so fucking sad. It's such a fucking detour from what Dragon Ball usually has, because death usually has, no weight in Dragon Ball. And again, it leads into the Cell Saga, so, again, that being my overall favorite arc of the series, this is a really great starter to that. That's how I actually got my friend to check out Dragon Ball, was I showed him History of Trunks, and then he's like, hey, let's watch the Androids arc. He'd never seen any of it, so he's only seen the Androids arc at this point. He's seen History of Trunks, he's also seen the Bardock special, and the Androids through Cell Saga, right? Like, we watched all of that. That was really fun, and that was his primer, was showing him History of Trunks. There's also a really cool DLC of History of Trunks on Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, so there you go. Alright, before we get to number 1, we're gonna do some honorable mentions. Now, first off, for the honorable mentions, you may have noticed Wrath of the Dragon was on the previous version, but not on this version. Wrath of the Dragon's still really cool. I really like Tapion, and Hirudegarn's a really cool monster, but it just didn't make this list because of my own reevaluation of things, and also those Super movies being really good. Because if you don't know, the previous list came out before Dragon Ball Super Broly, let alone Superhero. Next honorable mention is Broly's Second Coming. You might have been more surprised to not see that on the list since it was so highly ranked last time. I gotta say, Broly's Second Coming, although I still like it quite a lot, it is the one that devolved Broly into just yelling Kakarot all the time and being angry, and that's his whole character. I still really like Broly's Second Coming because we got all the stuff with Gohan and Goten and Trunks that's really fun, and it's interesting to have a movie that doesn't have Goku in it, so that's really fun. It's a really cool fight with Broly and the way they defeat him at the end. It's kind of bullshit that Broly's even alive at the beginning of this movie, though, to be honest. It's still a good movie, I still like it a lot, but I couldn't put it on this list because there are a few things when I think about it that don't really hold up. Next up we have World's Strongest, which was also on the last list. Again, that's still a really good movie. It didn't make the list because of those Super movies, and also, again, just me rethinking some things and also putting Path to Power on here. Next honorable mention, we have Lord Slug. That was an honorable mention last time. Again, it's a good movie, but it didn't make the list. And finally, we have Cooler's Revenge, which, again, is probably like number 11, if this list went up to 11. I like Cooler's Revenge quite a bit. It's the better of the two Cooler movies by a long shot, because Return of Cooler's actually pretty bad. It just Meta Cooler looks cool, and the space travel scenes I like. But Cooler's Revenge I actually do really like, even though it is in many ways a rehash of the Frieza saga. But to be fair, these movies do tend to do that, where they kind of reuse concepts. But yeah, it was a good one, it just didn't make the list, just barely. Alright, now we're done with the honorable mentions, let's get on to number 1. Surprise, surprise, number 1 is Bardock, the father of Goku. I think that's pretty fucking obvious when you saw that the other two in the top 3 were the same. I fucking love Bardock, the father of Goku. Bardock is my favorite character. I love that this movie is dark. It doesn't have any good guys. It's a bunch of villains fighting against other villains, and it ultimately has Bardock going into a battle he knows he can't possibly fucking win, but damn it, he's gonna put up a fight. The bloody headband scene is iconic. It's easily one of my favorite scenes in Dragon Ball Z, because fucking Bardock, with the blood on the headband, and then he puts it on and ties it. It's so fucking cool. I like how different this is from any other characters in the series, because again, there's no good guys. Bardock is a very hardened character. And it's also cool to see some backstory with Frieza and young Prince Vegeta. And we also see Nappa with hair, which is kind of interesting. As I've said countless times, Bardock, the father of Goku, is fucking great. I love this movie, and it has my second favorite death. Again, History of Trunks has my favorite death in the series. Bardock, the father of Goku, has my second favorite death. Also, Solid State Scouter is like one of the best songs in like all of Dragon Ball, so I like that a lot too. But anyway, that's my new version of my top 10 Dragon Ball movies. I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been Fugitive Red Eye. Have a good one. Toodles.
Hey, man, let's go home.
Subscribe to Fugitive Red Eye.